Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Arnies. We are three Palpatine clones with nothing better to do. I'm Austin Terry, and I'm joined, as always, by my best pals, Matt Johnson and Keith Baker. Matt, how you doing?
Not too good, Austin. Not too good.
Oh, no.
As I was just telling you guys before the recording, I've been having some internet issues. Can't even talk. I've been having some internet issues lately. They sent us an email around 11 this morning saying, hey, construction happened and we may have done something that will turn off your water. Should be a quick fix. Cut to like 7 p.m. and it's finally fixed. Couldn't take a shower. And, you know, I kind of have a migraine, didn't sleep too well last night. And why am I telling you guys this? Why am I telling the audience this? It's for the sole reason that there is a film called The Rise of Skywalker. And all I will say is it did nothing to make me feel any better today.
Oh, no. I'm sorry to hear that. If you get stuck in your apartment, we may be looking at a James Franco situation in 127 hours if your water doesn't come back on.
Well, we'll see what happens. I'll make sure to record it, and even if I'm not stuck under anything, I'll cut off limbs to pass the time. I'd rather do that than watch The Rise of Skywalker again. Anyway, Keith, how are you, Star Wars boy?
I'm a little sad. I'm going to be missing the.
A little sad.
I'm a little sad about this episode for one, and then I'm going to be missing this week's episode of Mandalorian. I'm going to be out of town. I'm upset I won't be able to review it with you boys, but we'll be back for episode 4. So
we will be. I wish I could say I was sad that the Star Wars series was ending, but I'm not. The old ones are pretty good. They hold up for the most part, but not all of them. The prequels suck. This new trilogy isn't doing much for me either, so it's been a long journey, this series we've been doing.
At least we got to spend 2 hours with our favorite film, Solo.
Well, I did like Solo, that's true. That was a bright spot. Solo was a bright spot. Keith agreed with me, but still put it under Phantom Menace.
Yep.
All right, well, as we've teased, it's a big day today. Not only is it our 25th episode, 25 episodes,
wow,
but it is the finale in the Star Wars series. Today we'll be discussing 2019's Rise of Skywalker. This film was Disney's big knee-jerk reaction to the audience reception of The Last Jedi. Matt, you have been quoted on this very show saying, "I can't wait to tear that shitty movie apart." So I know you've got some strong feelings today. Give us some thoughts so we can get into it.
Yeah, not even doing a bit here. I'm not going to be going about this to tear this movie apart, but I do genuinely hate this movie. I don't enjoy it. There are a couple bright spots and some cool moments for sure, but this is just a hollow movie for me. Like, this was only the second time I've seen it, and I watched it, and all the crazy stuff going on life-wise beyond that, it's just, I was miserable. And some stuff I didn't even react to. Some stuff is so baffling, the choices they made in this movie. Even if The Last Jedi hadn't happened, I still don't think it excuses some of the weird stuff in this movie. And it's funny because at Austin's wedding, Keith and I were there, obviously, and after all the festivities had wrapped up, Keith and I, we should go grab one last drink together, just because, Austin's about to go off on his honeymoon, we're not together too often, so let's go grab a drink. We went to go get a drink, and we were like, we need another drink, and we found an Irish pub, and Keith and I proceeded to go from just, let's get one last drink to, I don't remember most of that night, but what I do remember is the new Rise of Skywalker trailer, like, literally premiered, while Keith and I were sitting at this bar, shit-faced, like, doing countless shots of Fireball. And I'll never forget, the one part I do remember is I turned to Keith, I was like, Keith, it's the Knights of Ren! And I was so excited for this movie, and I wasn't, because I was sad that JJ was coming back. I didn't think I was going to be good, but these trailers got me going. And yeah, just a letdown. I'm excited to rank this one. I'm not too familiar on what your guys' thoughts are, but I think maybe I'm the most passionate, but I'm definitely excited to break it down and see if you guys like this considerably more than me or not.
Well, we're going to roll that sweet segue music, but Matt, I will give you a tease.
Ooh.
I think you're going to be pleased with my rankings today.
Okay. All right. I'm looking forward to it.
I hope y'all are pleased with mine.
I don't know, Keith. We'll see.
Well, let's get into the movie facts, and let's start, as always, with our cast. And we have Daisy Ridley as Rey, Adam Driver as Kylo Ren, John Boyega as Finn, Oscar Isaac as Poe, and Ian McDiarmid returning as Emperor Palpatine. This movie is also directed by J.J. Abrams, written by Chris Terrio, and scored by John Williams.
Yeah, I had to look this up to make sure, but yeah. We've had some critical things to say about Lawrence Kasdan, which I don't think is completely unfounded in the past, but the one kind of name missing here was Force Awakens. J.J. and Lawrence Kasdan wrote that. So kind of interesting that they brought on the guy that did Batman v Superman and Justice League to take a crack at this one. Yeah, weird. I'm sure there's a story behind it. I don't know it. So, yeah.
So as we've mentioned, the original plan for this entire trilogy was 3 films, 3 directors.
Yeah.
This movie was originally going to be directed by Colin Trevorrow, who was going to be working with his writing partner. I don't have the name in front of me, but it's the writing partner that wrote the Jurassic Park franchise.
Derek Connolly might be the name.
Yeah, that's it. So he was originally going to write this as well. And when Trevorrow left the production, his writing partner left with him. So I think that's where Chris Terrio comes from.
Yeah, Yeah. And that's what happens. I mean, this certainly isn't the only movie that kind of thing happens. There's countless writers and story by credits to go around for these huge movies, so it happens. But yeah, so we'll get into more of that later. Any other thoughts you guys had when it came to the cast and the crew for this one?
I'll just say they sucked a little bit more in this.
Yeah.
But I'll get more into detail later on when we really hit on our points.
I think all the individual performances are fine. I just think they don't have a whole lot to work with in this movie.
That could be it too.
I agree.
Yeah, it could be the writing. Yeah.
Okay, so we do have a little bit of production drama to talk about. As we mentioned, this movie was going to be directed by Colin Trevorrow, who eventually was fired by Kathleen Kennedy because they couldn't come to agreement on a script. And then J.J. Abrams was brought back in to continue his work from The Force Awakens. It's been speculated that Trevorrow was let go due to the reception of The Last Jedi, but he actually left the production before The Last Jedi was even released in theaters. So it really was more of just a disagreement between him and Kathleen Kennedy on the final script.
Yeah, really weird. I mean, they were put in a tough position. I understand what they were trying to do from the jump is we're going to have 3, interesting directors come aboard. And, I think that could have worked in some world. But then when kind of near the end, the guy that's supposed to direct your last one and wrote it leaves, now you're in this weird position where I believe they asked Rian Johnson first. And this also would have been before Last Jedi came out. Like, Ryan, would you want to direct the next one? And he was like, 1 was enough.
He gave a weird comment saying, the plan was never for me to direct episode 9. Like, that was kind of his answer to that question. So it seems like he was never interested.
He jumped to Knives Out pretty quick. I got the impression that he was interested in doing 1, but he didn't want to, devote that much time to another one. And so when that guy doesn't do it, you're in the worst possible scenario, in my opinion, where you're asking the guy that wrote and directed the first one to come write and direct the last one. And clearly he is probably going to be self-interested in doing stuff or continuing stuff from his, but then there's a whole other movie that happens in the middle. And when that movie is so kind of reviled and just mixed reception, what do? So it's like, I can sit here and make fun of JJ for some of the choices he made, but it's not like he was in a great position. And yeah, it's just tough all around.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, too, because Kathleen Kennedy has given a few interviews since this movie came out, and she was asked about her relationship with Trevorrow, and she basically wasn't really critical of him. She just was kind of clear to say, like, he was really kind of at a disadvantage because he wasn't involved from the beginning. So when he came in and was trying to do stuff that didn't really work with the story we started with The Force Awakens, it was really hard to take what he wanted to do and find a way to tie that into the rest of these movies. So she hasn't ever really been critical of Trevorrow. She's just kind of been clear to state out that maybe we should have had just one person direct all 3 of these movies.
Yeah, which we know that was their initial intent. They tried to get JJ to do all 3, and kind of the same thing as Rian Johnson. He was like, I'll do 1. I'm not going to commit that much time to a whole, trilogy, which I can't blame him for. It's just, and it's tough because I believe what Kathleen Kennedy's saying. Maybe they genuinely like, oh man, I don't like this script that Trevorrow did. But then they threw it out and they brought in JJ, and the way he kind of makes a direct sequel to Force Awakens and disregards Last Jedi, leaving this huge gap in weird character stuff. It's like, they probably would have just been better off biting the bullet and going with the original idea, or just trying to make some concessions and come to some type of agreement, because this one's just kind of a mess, unfortunately.
So let's go ahead and run through the reception really quick because Trevorrow's script did leak on Reddit earlier this year, and I do want to touch on that. But for the reception, this movie released in December of 2019 and made $1 billion worldwide against a $275 million budget. So as always with a Star Wars movie, except Solo, smashing success at the box office. It did launch, though, to a 51% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it really wasn't well received by critics or the audience. The critics' thoughts really boil down to they essentially felt it was a well-made movie but lacked any imagination or new ideas for the series.
Yeah, and it's just, again, kind of, at least for me, it felt in a lot of aspects like JJ's previous endeavor with Force Awakens, which was, as we talked about, a lot of the same stuff, a lot of the same motifs, a lot of the same locations, same character types were used as the originals, and this one does the same thing, and yeah, I don't know. I don't like it. Keith, what about you, Keith? How do you feel about that reception? Kind of no new ideas, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, I definitely agree with it, but I feel like there was some new ideas, but these new ideas, you could just tell they were just pulled out of their asses. Like there was no creativity with them.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just much the truth. I mean, and we'll get into it, especially. Well, we'll get into it later, but. Yeah, there was definitely some ideas here where they were just way too far-fetched. They just seemed exaggerated. They seemed very last-minute writing. They didn't seem like there was a lot of thought going into it.
They were far-fetched, and I agree with you, but we're saying that about Star Wars. There's ideas in this movie that make you go, what? Yeah. And we're not supposed to ever feel that way with this kind of movie, so just bizarre, but I completely agree with you.
Okay, so let's run through Trevorrow's script that leaked online. That's a great tune to make, because Keith, are you aware of the title of Trevorrow's version, what it could have been?
I think you said it was Duel of the Fates, right?
Yeah, it was going to be called Star Wars Episode 9, Duel of the Fates.
That would have been a way better fit of a title than Rise of Skywalker. Rise of Skywalker was pretty weak. And it was just kind of weird that they put his name in there. Like, none of the other titles had the name in there.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of, I don't know, it just kind of threw me off, at least. I don't know about you guys.
I was interested in it. I mean, that's the reason I thought it was interesting when that first teaser trailer came out and the title pops, because if you guys remember, it was kind of similar to Avengers Endgame. It felt like a lot of time was going by where we didn't know the title of Episode 9. I was like, this is kind of weird. I feel like we should know it by now. And when that trailer came out in Rise of Skywalker, I was like, oh, that's kind of different and interesting. So I'm excited to see how that will actually come into play. And after watching the movie twice now, I mean, there are some reasons, I guess, but none of them strong. I agree. It's just weak. I agree with you.
That's true. Yeah. When I first saw the title, I wasn't that upset. It was like, okay, that might be like, what's the meaning behind that? Mm-hmm. But then once you watch the film, it doesn't fit at all.
Yeah.
So the Duel of the Fates movie was going to focus more on Kylo as Supreme Leader trying to cripple the Resistance.
Yep.
And there were kind of going to be two different pairings of our heroes. So Rey and Poe were going to be traveling the galaxy together, searching for ways to restore the Jedi Order. And then Finn and Rose were going to be together on Coruscant, working to send a signal from the old Jedi Temple as like a symbol of hope to the galaxy.
Yep.
And then eventually Finn was going to rally Resistance fighters on Coruscant and defected stormtroopers, and they were going to have a really big battle in the streets of Coruscant. Meanwhile, Kylo was going to find an old hologram message from Palpatine that was supposed to be sent to Darth Vader, and Palpatine was going to send him to train with Tor Volum, Palpatine's former Sith master, to kind of complete. The original message was going to be to complete Vader's training, but since Kylo's finds it, it was going to be to complete Kylo's training.
Interesting. I mean, the Coruscant thing kind of sounds cool, going back there.
Yeah.
You don't really see that too much anymore. As long as Finn and Rose complete their mission, because Last Jedi they didn't. Yeah. So it'd be nice if they were to complete it.
You know, what I can say at least is that the Duel of the Fates script does seem to be the natural sequel to The Last Jedi in a lot of ways, and also a sequel to Force Awakens. But the thing that my favorite part about it, which we obviously did not get with Rise of Skywalker, is they took what happened at Last Jedi and they committed to it. Kylo is the main villain of Duel of the Fates. He should have been the main villain of Rise of Skywalker, but then they were like, no, we have to redeem him because they did that in the original trilogy, and I am incapable of doing anything that wasn't done in those movies. So then it's like, well, bring back Palpatine. And it's like, oh my god. So I preferred the idea of Kylo being the main villain. So.
And they were going to for sure solidify Kylo as as a villain because there was going to be this final showdown between Kylo and Rey. Then eventually the Force ghosts of Yoda, Luke, and Obi-Wan were going to appear, try to appeal to Kylo, and Kylo was going to refuse them. So he wasn't going to be able to be turned from the dark side.
Mm-hmm. Which would have been cool. It would have been different, and it would have made sense based on where they were going. I mean, like we said, what the fuck does Kylo or Ben, whichever one you want to call it, they don't owe anything to Luke Skywalker. We know where that led him in Last Jedi. So it's like, I think it's weird that he turns. I don't believe it in Rise of Skywalker. So we could talk about it all day long, but I agree with Keith as well. The Coruscant setting would have been really cool. I can't remember all of them. It's been a while since I read it and looked at a lot of the comments and stuff, but there was a lot more than just Coruscant that felt like really cool continuations from even the prequels. Like, the Duel of the Fates script to me felt like not only was it the cap off for the sequel trilogy, but it was also the touted big grand finale of the Skywalker Saga, which I think there's some, I'll give credit where it's due. There are some decent elements in Rise of Skywalker, the final product, that have that as well. But I think Duel of the Fates was a bit more successful. And we also have to say this now, that's just a script. There's a lot that goes into filmmaking, when it comes to adapting a script into something. So it's not like this would have been perfect. I'm just saying, just from like a script perspective, I think Duel of the Fates could have been something really cool that felt more like a natural fit in this franchise. And we would have heard Duel of the Fates again.
Let's run through a quick plot summary, and here we go. Emperor Palpatine has returned and built a secret Imperial fleet called the Final Order on the planet Exegol. Palpatine offers the fleet to Kylo if he can kill Rey. Rey is continuing her Jedi training with Leia, but news of Palpatine's return quickly reaches the Resistance. Rey, Poe, and Finn set off to find a Sith Wayfinder, which can lead them to Exegol. Along the way, Rey continues to grow stronger and eventually uses Force Lightning. Kylo reveals that she is the granddaughter of Palpatine. Rey strikes Kylo down, but heals him and exiles herself on Ahch-To. Luke returns as a Force ghost and convinces Rey to go to Exegol and defeat Palpatine. Rey travels to Exegol, transmits her location to the Resistance, and Kylo turns from the dark side to join Rey. The First Order is defeated and overthrown.
I mean, yeah, you nailed it. It's a pretty nice, condensed plot summary. Yeah. And Notice, Keith, I'm sure you'll agree, Austin very smartly left out a lot of the really weird subplots and like weird little mini trips we have to take to other planets when, again, they're on a timeline. They say, wow, in 16 hours, the Final Order will decimate us. And there's a moment where it's like, hey, we can't go there today. Let's wait till sunrise. And Rey's like, we gotta go now. And Poe's like, chill out, man. We'll get there. We gotta wait. They said we gotta wait. Just weird. But yes, I think Austin's version is one I would have rather had to watch.
My version is a 45-minute TV
exactly. That's why I would have liked it.
I would have taken that too, yeah.
And the funny thing is that this one isn't any longer than the others, but man, it feels like it.
I mean, let's talk Exegol. So, like I mentioned earlier, this was a little bit too far-fetched to me. Actually, not a little. It was a lot far-fetched for me. So he had this entire fleet. So why didn't he use this at the beginning? And why wasn't the Final Order ever mentioned in the previous films? Like, this kind of just came out of nowhere.
And I actually was kind of hoping you guys could answer, is this fleet just like hiding under the surface of this planet? Like, I don't understand how the logistics work here. And where do all the soldiers come from to control these ships?
I don't know.
I don't know either. That's why I'm so confused about it. And why would they put that in there? I don't know.
Also, isn't it so weird how the opening crawl just opens with Palpatine is back?
I was going to say we have to talk about that. I remember being in the theater, and it was just one of those moments where like you look around to try and like see if other people are reacting the way you are. Like, is this weird to anybody else? Like, what's the first line? It's like, death is here. No, what is it? It's like death awakens or the dead speak. That's what it is. The dead speak. And I was like, what? And then, yeah, you're right. Literally, in the first paragraph of the crawl of the movie, it's like, Palpatine's back. It's like, what? Well, really? Interesting. So, yeah, very odd. And yeah, when Keith mentioned it earlier, stuff being far-fetched, and I made a joke like, how is there something far-fetched in a Star Wars movie? This is it. This is what it mostly boils down to. Anything and everything to do with Exegol is weird as hell. Like, I don't know where the soldiers come from for these ships. Also, when we get there at the end, there's this whole audience of people. So maybe there are people here. Maybe that's who was on the ships. I don't know. Also, kind of weird how you get to Exegol, huh? Little odd. Where, hey, do you want to get to this secret planet? Well, you have to go find a Sith Wayfinder, and then you plug it into your ship, but you still have to be a really amazing pilot. In fact, if you just found this place and were a really good pilot, maybe you'd be okay. I don't know. Then we have a lot to get through here, because then, of course, at the beginning, we see all the clones. We see Snoke's in his little yellow bathtub. It's like, what the hell? And there's so much crazy stuff when it comes to Exegol, and it all comes at the very beginning of the movie. It just feels like you're getting punched in the face over and over again.
So I don't really mind the Wayfinder thing that much. Like I think it's a cool idea. It's just not executed very well. But speaking of like people piloting the ships, I do like how like later on in the movie there is kind of like a throwaway line when Kylo's meeting with his generals and some random generals like, we're gonna have to recruit more of the galaxy's young to man all these ships.
Yeah.
Like I do kind of appreciate that they threw that in there. But then it also kind of makes me think like, they had no idea how any of this stuff worked either. They just put it out there because they thought it looked cool on screen.
Well, yeah, in the world, they didn't know about Exegol either, or Palpatine. So it's just weird.
I meant the creators.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. But, yeah, and it's another one of those things. I don't know where the turn happened. I don't know if it was JJ, was it Kathleen Kennedy, was it somebody else that was like, look, we appreciate what Ryan did with Last Jedi. Clearly he wants Kylo to be the main villain. Somebody somewhere up top at Disney did not want to do that. And because they didn't want to do that, that means you need a main villain. So it had to be Palpatine, I guess. And whenever that whole thing got put into the script, they had to come up with a lot of leaps in logic in order to bring him back. Where's he been? What's he been doing? They reveal he's the one, of course, pulling all the strings, so he has this whole fleet. So that's how they explain it away, but as we have clearly discussed, it just is not executed well, and it is just odd. Even if you're a Palpatine fan, I think they would even say, lots of weird stuff going on with this element of the story.
The idea of like a really old Sith planet is like cool.
Oh yeah.
But the way the planet looks too is just so weird. They're like walking into this really narrow tomb, and even though the tomb is super narrow height wise, there's still lightning striking up and down. Like it doesn't look like a very like habitable planet. And I get that that's kind of the point, but it looks even inhabitable for Sith as well.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it should have just been like a Mustafar kind of planet, just kind of dark and maybe lava like, not this weird lightning
with a huge arena in the middle of it. What's that used for usually? But also, Keith, you said Mustafar, or Mustafar, I guess is how it's pronounced. We get to go to Mustafar at the very beginning. That's where Kylo gets his Sith Wayfinder. And also weird that it doesn't look cool. Like, Mustafar looked way cooler in Revenge of the Sith. I mean, couldn't we have gotten a little bit of lava? Like, why did they show us the planet, and then we go there, and there's this really cool scene of Kylo using his force powers and lightsaber, but it's like, this doesn't look anything like it used to. I don't know.
I didn't even know that was Mustafar until right now. Like, you guys talking about it. I had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that's synonymous with it is lava, and we don't see that. So, kind of odd, but that's where he gets the whole Sith Wayfinder, and that starts the whole crazy storyline. And isn't it also weird that the movie doesn't really kind of acknowledge if Palpatine is a clone or how he's alive? You had to like go read on Wikipedia to find out, like, or read some of the books. I know people love the books that they've put out in between all these, but the movie itself, kind of a lot of questions that you don't really get answers to if that's all you are going off of, which a lot of people will. So he's just kind of there.
Yeah, well, it's like I think he had a good death in Return of the Jedi. It was a good close with him. That's why I was so pissed off that he came back.
It's how he died, the context, which was pretty cool. That
yeah.
And then him coming back is like, oh, that really
it just kind of
ruins the
that
whole Anakin chosen one thing. I get it, but it's not as exciting when he's just apparently hooked up to some weird contraption the whole movie so he can stay alive, I guess. I don't know. It's odd, for sure. And the Snoke thing they explain just like, I've been behind this all, as the camera pans and we see like a couple like Snoke clones in this weird thing, and it's like, oh, okay, interesting, I guess. Why was Snoke in charge at all? Like, why weren't you in charge? Is it so you could build up this fleet?
And how are you building the ships? I mean, are you hiring engineers to come over here to Exegol secretly to build these, or are you building them with the Force? Or
I have no idea.
How does that work?
I think it's weirdly the Force.
It could be.
I saw something online that used the term resurrect, that he resurrected this fleet. So I don't know.
I have no idea. Maybe.
But it's still weird that it rises from beneath the surface of the planet.
Yeah.
And there's just guys in there like, yeah, turn that valve on, turn this button.
Well, and of course, they all have to be basically mini Death Stars too. Every single one of these ships has the capability to destroy a planet. So it's like, what's better than one Death Star? 1,000,000. Anyway, yes. Odd way to start the movie, because we already have so many questions that we're all just saying, I don't know, and moving on. And that's the first 5 minutes of this movie. One cool thing, I'm going to make an effort throughout this episode to point out all the cool things of this movie. I loved the first Palpatine narration when Kylo's coming down, and he says the line, he's like, I've been all the voices inside your head. And it keeps changing to, like, you hear Palpatine's voice, and then it changes to Snoke's voice, and then it's Vader's voice, and then you hear the breathing. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that too, and I like most of the Palpatine monologues in this movie. But the thing I don't like is the weird like horror music and like the almost like jump cue with like the piano striking whenever Palpatine appears on screen.
I know.
Where like Kylo takes a sharp turn and then it's like boing, and then like Palpatine's face is there, and it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Well, kind of like the Dark Rey face. Remember whenever Rey's fighting Dark Rey, and then there's literally just a moment where she goes, ah! And like her mouth like opens and there's fangs. It was like, oh my god, crazy. What the hell's next? We gotta move on. This beginning is just crazy.
I know they were kind of trying to get away from The Last Jedi with this movie, but do you think there should have been at least something about Luke's actions in The Last Jedi, like actually inspiring hope across the galaxy, especially since there's like a clear line where he says, this will be the spark that unites the rebellion, or something like that?
Yeah. Short answer, yes.
Yeah.
Well, and you know why? The reason it's also odd is because that becomes like a subplot point in this film, and the way it's resolved is, I guess, off-screen, Lando somehow was able to rally everybody. I'm not diminishing Lando. Obviously, Lando Calrissian holds a lot of weight in the world of Star Wars. He could convince some people to help. But that's basically the answer, is he just rounded up everybody while Poe led a smaller force to go fight. And so that was the answer. Like, that's how they rallied hope. And then it makes you wonder. So I guess, I mean, they have a line, to your point, Austin, where it kind of feels like they're just jabbing Last Jedi a bit, where he's like, we sent out that distress signal on Crate, and nobody came. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like, there's some other weird lines as well that feel like even more egregious. Like, do we have to, like, shit on everything that movie did? Like, there's that line where Dominic Monaghan's like, we're gonna need some Holdo maneuvers. And somebody's like, come on, that was a 1 in a million shot. I'm like, why? Like, if I aimed carefully at a ship and I was going to sacrifice myself and did hyperspeed, would that not have worked? Why is it a 1 in a million shot? Like, why do you have to diminish something that people actually liked in that movie? It just is so weird. It feels like The Last Jedi didn't even happen almost in this world, especially with Rose, who I wonder why Rose was even in this movie. Because Finn's like, come on, Rose, let's go on an adventure. And she's like, no, I gotta take some notes for Leia. It's like, okay, see ya.
Yeah, it's so weird. I'm gonna stay back and study the ship specs with Leia.
It's so funny, man.
She's a pretty unnecessary character.
It made me think back. There was maybe like a D23 or a Comic-Con or something where, I'm not joking, JJ came out and he either got asked the question or he said it on his own. He said, the best thing Rian Johnson did with The Last Jedi was cast Kelly Marie Tran as Rose. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Because at the time I was like, okay, cool. Okay, maybe they're going to do something cooler with her character. Maybe they're actually going to acknowledge some stuff that happened, even though JJ had nothing to do with it. And then after you watch this movie, you're like, why did he say that? Because he clearly didn't mean it. He didn't use her at all. So, just funny, man. But I agree with you, Austin, overall. It does feel odd that, like, they disregarded the whole ending of Last Jedi where they clearly inspired hope for a lot of people. I mean, they showed it. They showed us those kids on Canto Bight. They knew about it, but apparently nobody else cared.
Yeah.
But then it becomes a subplot in this movie to do it again.
And it would have been cool to have some scenes of just like random people in the galaxy, like almost like telling like this like almost like mythology story about Luke Skywalker defeating Kylo Ren at the Battle of Crate or something. Like there's a really cool way to do that in this movie, even if you are trying to get away from it.
Luke Skywalker got shot by 10 AT-ATs and still stood and beat Kylo Ren. Like something like that. And also, think about it. You always have to, for me, you always have to think
spoken in
about...
tones of awe.
Yeah, exactly. And you always have to think about the alternative in cases like this. Let's say there's a version of Rise of Skywalker where they did commit to the whole Luke inspiring hope thing. How would this movie have been different? All of it would have changed, I guess? You can still have Lando be up doing his own thing. That's fine. The only thing at the end is whenever Rey transmits her signal, everybody comes. That would have been cool. That would have been almost the exact same thing. So it's like, just commit to it. Nobody would have... Even people that hated The Last Jedi wouldn't have been like, God, I can't believe they committed to the Luke-inspiring hope storyline. Like...
And also, I guess we should mention here that in the Duel of Fates script, one of the ploys that Kylo uses is he cuts off communication between the solar systems, so nobody can talk to each other anymore, and that's kind of how he attempts to cripple the Resistance. But then when Rose and Finn send out that signal from the Jedi Temple, the hope from Last Jedi is built upon, and everybody comes rushing to Coruscant to join in the battle. So it's still used; it's just more effective in the other script, I think.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the writing and the dialogue of this movie. I thought all of it was just kind of ultra dramatic. Everybody had this weird way of talking to each other. Like Kylo and Rey, for instance, were the constant back and forth, even with Poe and Finn. It was like they weren't talking to each other like they were in the other movies. They just kind of this weird, like, "Are you okay? I'm fine. Are you okay? I'm fine. We're all gonna be okay.
I need you, General."
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, but dialogue is it's. I'm not even gonna say it sucks. It's just weird at times because of that. It feels so wooden in some instances, and it feels like, yeah, you're right. Every scene there has to be something tense or dramatic or something happening, and that's not how any of the previous two felt. So it's weird.
Let's not forget that the dialogue in this film is coming from the same guy that wrote the "I believe in justice" line for Superman. So.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Well, and the worst examples are we have lines that are kind of cool or at least emotional in concept, but then in the context of the movie, it just feels weird when you compare it to the rest of the weird lines. Like we have C-3PO ostensibly sacrificing himself, and he's just wandering around, and then he turns around and he just stares at them, and then, you know, they know what is going to happen. Like, they know that C-3PO has to basically die, and Poe's response is, "What are you looking at, 3PO?" And then C-3PO's like, "I'm taking one last look, sir, at my friends." And it's just like, nothing pays off. Then he's just fine at the end. So it's just weird. It's just so weird to me, some of the dialogue here. Clearly trying to tie stuff together and like make you nostalgic, but by the end you're like, oh, that didn't pay off.
Yeah, they definitely only had 3PO say that line for a trailer.
And it was pretty cool, the trailer. I was like, no. So exactly, but you're exactly right. Yeah, so it's kind of segueing a bit from that. We've talked about Kylo and Rey a bunch and some of their weird interplay between each other, but I guess let's just break it down, because I kind of feel like there was almost too much dancing between Rey and Kylo, if that makes sense. Like, they were just doing the same thing over and over again. Like, Last Jedi, I thought, did a good job of having their conversations matter and be consequential each time, whereas here, it's like every conversation they had was basically just kind of the same thing with different phrasing.
At least with Last Jedi, they're both, like, they're having these conversations, but they're still staying true to, like, their core beliefs. Like, Kylo wants to become leader of the galaxy. Rey wants to become an effective Jedi. So they're having their conversations from those point of views. Whereas this one, they're like kind of wish-washing back and forth. And the first time I saw this movie, from the very first Rey and Kylo conversation, I was like, oh no, they're setting up a romance. And then when we get there at the end, it just felt so pointless and just so dumb for me.
It's cringy. It's weird.
Yeah, it's super cringy. Force Awakens and Last Jedi, when they're going back and forth with the new Force ability where they can see each other and all that, I thought that was cool, and I thought the conversations were productive, and it was productive to the story. This one, it's just kind of, I don't know how to really describe it. Yeah, he's just saying, "I know you," and they're like, "I know you because of this," and "I know you because of this," and they were just kind of like digging into each other's like deep thoughts, and yeah. I don't know, it got a little bit too sappy for me.
How many times did Kylo say, "I offered you my hand once"? It's like, yeah, we know. We know.
Well, and then the flip side of that is, how many times does Rey say, "I know there's good in you, Ben"?
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you know that?
with that force ability of them being connected, I do like how they do kind of improve it a little bit here, where they do have some cool fights through that force connection. That is some cool stuff in here.
Yeah. I
still think the force connection's cool. It's just the sappiness of the conversations is what got annoying.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of the trilogy is their connection. And I loved how it worked in Last Jedi, where they were surprised by their ability to connect on this level and actually be able to converse, even though they're like a galaxy apart, which was so cool. And here, this actually felt one of the few examples of something that was a natural progression from The Last Jedi specifically. I like that, because in Last Jedi, we saw that scene where I believe it's when Luke catches them talking, and he destroys the hut, which causes the rain to fall in. And Kylo, who's across the world, he comes out of that like little vision or conversation, and his hands is wet. So he's able to, in a weird way, physically interact. And like Austin mentioned, they did the step up here where that played into the fights, where they're fighting, and it's kind of a cool concept. Like they're not even together, and they're somehow fighting, and elements of each of their settings is coming into play. And then, of course, at the end, they're able to actually physically pass a lightsaber from one to the other. So it felt like a cool progression to that force power. But before we move off that point, I do want to talk about that, because it wouldn't be an Arnies, basically Star Wars episode if we didn't talk about the Force. And we got some interesting, I won't say weird, because they're not weird on paper, but we have new force powers. Apparently, you can heal wounds now. And you can like pass your life force from one to another, so kind of some big leaps, you might say. What'd you guys think of that?
And also that life force ability is apparently only found in Siths as well.
Yeah, I was a bit iffy on that. I wasn't really clear on what was going on there.
It being found in Siths is weird to me, because I think, don't you have to choose to be a Sith? Like, you're not born a Sith, so...
I guess their argument is that Rey is born a Sith. I guess is the argument. Like with Palpatine's blood, he quote unquote has all the legend and all the Sith inside him, like Rey has the Jedi through her. So maybe Rey being born in that family gives her that ability.
But then why?
I don't know.
Why is the whole point of when they're like never succumb to the dark side? Like they always make it seem like you have a choice.
I know. That's why it's also weird that we'll definitely get into this, that Rey's a Palpatine, because it seems like they're with some of these force powers, it seems like she doesn't.
Well, let's go ahead and just talk about Rey being a Palpatine here, because it's so confusing, and just thinking about it from any angle is confusing. How does this work timeline wise? Where has Palpatine kids been hiding the whole time that he was Emperor of the Senate or whatever? And who the hell wants to have sex with Emperor Palpatine anyways for him to make a kid?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to go through the facts here of what we know. What we kind of found out from this film was, so Palpatine had kids. His son, I guess, disagreed with his beliefs and everything. And I don't know if his son had the Force powers or not. I'm guessing he did. Maybe he didn't. And so then they were exiled to Jakku, which is where they had Rey. And then they get on the ship.
The assassin character was sent to the goal was to get Rey. And I don't remember how it happens or the confluence of events, but basically at some point, the parents are like, we gotta leave Rey here so they don't fuck with her, they don't bother her. And so that happens, and then the assassin can't bring Rey to Exegol, so then he just kills the parents on the ship. That's the way I understood it. But yeah, so to Keith's point, for whatever reason, I thought that the son was a clone. I don't know why I thought that. But clearly it's not. It feels like maybe they just shouldn't have shown the son, because he doesn't look like Palpatine. I guess you could make the argument that he's clearly, when he dies, he's much younger than even when we saw young Palpatine in Phantom Menace. So maybe that is what he grows up into. I don't know if it's a clone. If it's a clone, it makes more sense to me, is what I'm saying. Because then it's not like at some weird point in time Palpatine had a lover that was down with his beliefs and they had this kid.
Well, isn't the weird thing of that too, like, because didn't Palpatine like almost breathe Anakin into existence? So why didn't he just do that with Rey?
I don't know. Yeah, the idea is that Palpatine essentially, and maybe I think Plagueis, his master, was involved. They manipulated the midichlorians, and that impregnated Shmi Skywalker, and then so this child that had dark side tendencies was born. I don't know if that's canon anymore, but I think that was at least the idea that they kind of teased at. So, yeah, but if that's the case, then I don't know why they did it any differently.
Yeah, the midichlorians thing kind of just goes out the window after the prequels.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
don't
That's probably
hear
why.
about that again.
The Metachlorians actually isn't canon anymore because George Lucas actually went ahead and trademarked that because he was hoping to handicap Disney into using that term in his movies. And then if he owns the trademark, he then has to force them into using his ideas.
A genius, if there ever was one.
George. We love you.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely weird. I mean, not only and again, when did this happen in the timeline? Because if it happened during the original trilogy,
the timeline thing is the weirdest thing to think about this.
Yeah, because if it was original trilogy, it's weird because he's so messed up and he's the emperor at that point. So did he clone himself? I don't know. If it happened during the prequels, then the ages of the son and Rey doesn't seem to quite add up. So either way, it's weird. But I also think we should just talk about this. Like, let's move past the way to the movie. We should just talk about the whole aspect of, which was crazy. Again, another example. In Last Jedi, I know a lot of people don't, but I personally love the idea of this whole parents' mystery being set up. And then Kylo's like, your parents are nobody. Like, kind of like saying to the fans, Rey doesn't need to be a Kenobi granddaughter, doesn't need to be Luke Skywalker's kid to be cool and have these cool powers and be her own person. And if she finds her independence, she can be more powerful than anybody. And I think that was a really cool storyline. And then here, it's like, why? Did they just do that because people weren't expecting it to be Palpatine? And because they felt that they had to make her connected to somebody? I think that aspect of it kind of sucks too. It just feels like they felt like they had to do it, so it was connected to the Skywalker saga.
Well, and that's also another element that was different in the Duel of Fate script, is Rey is not a Palpatine. They stick with her being a nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they didn't even give her any, like, Palpatine, tendencies or mannerisms or anything like that, like...
Keith, did you see the fangs when it's Dark Rey?
Yeah, she had fangs.
Oh, yeah, when she hisses like a cat, it was kind of weird. She's like...
I guess she has the lightning, so it's like, I guess that's...
No, but when, regular Rey shows up, and then Palpatine's like, I'm your grandfather, and he looks ugly as shit, she's like, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. I just remember my parents leaving Jakku. Oh, man. I don't know. It's a weird, it's a dumb storyline.
Yeah, I think this type of storyline with a character being like a secret child of somebody really evil, but they didn't know that, they were isolated, so they actually kind of grew up being a really humble and nice person, and then they discover the Jedi in some way, so they're a Jedi, and then they find out naturally, oh, actually, you're related to a Sith, and it's like, oh, this whole conflict. That could have been cool in some other media. I think the problem here is it's just, we're looking at the 9 films in the Skywalker saga, and you can throw in Rogue One or Solo if you want, but in the main 9 films, we've seen so many characters have to be connected to one another, have to be related, have to something in that sense. So when there's just another twist where it reveals, oh, guess what? Another character was too. It's like, I don't care. It's not interesting. We've seen it. Yeah, I guess it's more interesting than being related to Kenobi. I mean, if they had done daughter of Luke Skywalker, that would have been the worst. That was the most expected thing. So I guess I'll give them a point there. At least I didn't totally expect it the first time.
But you know they wanted to. You know they wanted to. Sure. But then they were like, oh, well, she did just spend a whole movie with Luke, and that didn't come up. So they were like, we gotta do Palpatine.
Oh, we forgot to bring it up. Yeah, I'm sure that's probably the plan, but yeah, who the hell knows? So
But I think we all can agree that she should have been her own character, not connected to anybody blood wise.
Yeah, it would have been better if
I think she should have been a direct descendant of Wedge.
Rey Antilles.
Oh yeah. Rey Antilles.
That would have been cool. Yeah. And also, this is a good time to bring it up because I know we'll be talking about it more later. I'll play devil's advocate slightly. Let's say, in Last Jedi, let's say in Last Jedi they kept the mystery going, right? They never brought up the whole parentage stuff they never gave us an answer. And then in this movie, if they do the Palpatine thing, at least I can go, oh, wow, the mystery had an answer. I may not like it, but at least there's an answer. It's really hard to give us an answer in Last Jedi, love it or not, and then you just give us a different one. And how do they justify it? Rey's like, you lied to me, Kylo. And he's like, I didn't lie. Your parents were nobody. But your grandpapa was somebody. And I would say, well, it sounds like my fucking dad was the son of Emperor Palpatine. That you probably could have told me that, because that's not a nobody. So it's just such a bullshit, what's the word? Twist in logic, how they explain it away. It's like, your parents were nobody, but I'm not talking about your grandparents. It's just, just annoying. So it's like, you can't give us an answer and then just do the fucking opposite the next time and expect people to love it. It's how we'll get to it, it's how I feel about Kylo's redemption. Like, you can redeem Kylo if you want, but don't make him the main villain at the end of Last Jedi and then redeem him. So, yeah, it's all weird. The back and forth between Last Jedi and this movie.
Well, let's go ahead and get into the Rey and Kylo duel on the remnants of the Death Star. What do you guys think of this scene? We also have Leia's death here as well.
Ugh, yeah.
Yeah, I did like the lightsaber fighting on this.
Yeah, the blocking of this scene's awesome with them jumping between the waves, and I really like the visuals of the fallen Death Star too. I think this whole sequence of events is probably the best part of the film.
Yeah, and we get an appearance from Han Solo here as well, which was okay. What did you guys think about that?
I didn't think you needed it.
I have a lot of thoughts on this stuff. First of all, again, like I said, I'll shout all the cool stuff. I didn't love all the aspects of the fight. I felt the choreography was good. I didn't love how all of like the weird force jumping looked. For some reason, the way they blocked it, where they're so like, they just arc so perfectly, just looked a bit weird to me. But that's a nitpick, I admit that. But the fight itself was pretty cool, and yeah, does it need to be on the Death Star? No, but you know, it worked. It's these like, they crashed on the Endor moon and they're fighting amongst the waves. Very cool setup. And I like the natural buildup, because their fight previously in the movie was, like we mentioned, the cool, while he's on Kashimi and she's on his ship. So they have like a pretty cool lightsaber fight where they're not actually physically present together. So this was the natural progression. Now they are. So that was cool. I thought that was built up pretty well. Yeah. But then they brought in the Leia stuff, and that's where it got a little weird. And it's tough to criticize the Leia stuff, right? It's really tough, because what the hell were they supposed to do?
Yeah, it's hard to do because she died, in real life. But they made all these comments beforehand saying, like, Leia's the key to the film. Fans are going to be so happy with the way we send her off. And the way they did it's terrible. It looks weird. It doesn't fit the story at all. It's not, like, I just think it looks so bad and it's so dumb. I would have rather had her get blown up on the deck in Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Yep, me too. I think that was a good ending for her. And I think she played a good part in Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. She didn't have, and I like we said, obviously the actress, Carrie Fisher, died, so I know they couldn't do much, but as a character, she still didn't do much in this movie, so yeah, she should have passed on in the last one.
Yeah, for me, it's just one of those, I mean, I feel like there's lots of things to criticize. This is one of the few I just won't, even though I do want to. I won't, because it's an impossible situation. For those that don't remember the context, Carrie Fisher died before The Last Jedi came out. So they had finished filming that, so they were kind of like, okay, we'll make it work. And then what the hell do you do the next one? Because, again, then looking in the characters in the world, they just killed Luke, and they, like, almost killed Leia, but then she survives, and she is kind of reformed as the leader of this great resistance. But then, unfortunately, Carrie Fisher dies in real life. So now it's like, fuck, Han Solo's dead, Luke's dead. We wanted the next one to be Leia be the figurehead of that, and now we can't do that. But we can't just kill her off screen, because there's such a, like, we need to have elements of her there. And I get that. I think they did. I think they had to have some of the training aspects with Rey. I think even the dialogue had to be there in some way. And I get, they never had that connection with Ben. And I feel like the parent needed that. I feel like Leia needed that. But again, she's not there. They had to repurpose
But she did have
footage.
that with the bridge scene, though.
I know, and I love that. But I'm saying, they'd already shot the movie, and they felt that they were in a bind and couldn't change anything. So it's like, I can't criticize what they do in Rise of Skywalker, but if I'm looking past that, I agree with you guys. I think it is weird, because think about it too. We've seen Leia connect with so many people via the Force, Luke mainly, throughout these movies, and it didn't seem that hard. So are you telling me that apparently if you're somebody with the Force, or you're Force sensitive or whatever, and you are able to kind of talk with somebody who's a Sith, that's gonna kill you? I don't know. The way they built it up with his Maz is like, Leia knows what she has to do. It's her final stand. And all she does is, like, she's basically present, essentially. She makes herself known during the fight with Rey. Kylo sees her, and then he gets stabbed and she dies immediately. And it's just like, okay. Like, it's just odd. Again, I don't know what else they would have done.
They also, I get it's harder because she couldn't actually film her lines for this one, but they had some pretty shitty lines for her in this one too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they're just all throwaway lines, like, never underestimate a droid. It's like, oh, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, of course, Rey has to repeat it later.
Yeah, because they had to repurpose lines from Force Awakens, so they were put in an impossible situation. That's one of the few things I can't fault them for, because I don't know what the hell the alternative was. I guess the only thing they could have done is just had Leia die off screen before Rise of Skywalker, and then it starts and she's already dead. But then,
do you think it would have been too on the nose to open with a funeral?
I think they've probably thought about it, but then it's like there would have been lines like Rey's talking to Finn, and she's like, "Man, Leia was such a good trainer," and like, or they would have had something like where Finn's like, "Wow, Rey, like you're really a good fighter. Like you've really done. You look like a lot better. You're swinging a lot better. You're doing great." And she's like, "Yeah, Leia trained me well. I miss her a lot."
And then Finn would have responded with, "Oh, I love you."
And then Finn would have also said, "Also, I have the Force too now." Ugh.
And then he just would have screamed, "Rey!"
Yeah, JJ was like, "I'm not making this movie unless John Boyega screams Rey 4 times." But yeah, so I agree with you guys. The Leia stuff is odd. There's no doubt about that. The context of her dying is weird, connecting with Ben that way. But I will say, another highlight, I'm going to go a step further than Keith. I really like the Han Solo scene. I feel like Harrison Ford had no intention of ever coming back, but he does seem like a good guy in the sense that, I think he recognized Disney was in a shit spot. They couldn't use Carrie Fisher the way they wanted, so they probably said, "Hey, can we do one scene that'll be kind of like the emotional push to kind of get Kylo to abandon that identity and accept Ben again?" And he was like, "Sure, I'll do that." So I actually kind of like the scene. I like how they just basically actually reused just straight up some of the lines from Force Awakens, that final scene, because they had to, because Han can't be a Force ghost, so like they say, he's a memory. So we have some of the same lines, but I love the acting for both of them because now it means something different. And this was actually pretty effective for me. I quite like it.
Yeah, I think it's a great, well-acted scene. It just, I don't know, I guess it just felt like way too much fan service for me.
Sure. Yeah, I can't deny that. I all I'm saying is I think it's very purposeful that he appears on screen probably, 2 minutes after they ran out of Carrie Fisher footage and Leia had to die. So I think they just put him there in order to make it a bit more acceptable in a weird way. Maybe they were like, maybe fans will appreciate it more if he's there to kind of finish off the scene. So yeah, so we brought it up a bit earlier, but to move on here, another big thing we got to talk about, because it's another one of those things where they set up something in Last Jedi, and then this movie seems to be trying to do something different that feels a bit more akin to the original trilogy. We got to talk about Kylo abandoning the Ren identity, becoming Ben Solo once again, and essentially getting his redemption a la Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi. So I want you guys to take this away. Austin, what were your thoughts here? Did this work for you? Is this a redemption that made sense, or what do you think?
No, I think he's way better as a villain. Up until this point, he was almost one of my favorite villains in Star Wars. But it just seems almost harder to try and redeem Kylo than it was Vader. Like, I know we see Vader blow up an entire planet, but I feel like as an audience, you're like a little bit more removed from that because you don't actually see any on-screen deaths, and it is the first movie of the franchise, so you're not really too attached to anybody yet. Whereas Kylo, we've seen physically murder so many innocent people from the very first of this trilogy, including a fan favorite in Han Solo. So I feel like Kylo is almost more unredeemable than Vader was.
I'm pretty much in the same boat, except that, we have to remember that Ben is a Skywalker, and so the Skywalker story is about good versus evil. So while he is a good villain, I think it was kind of cool to see him kind of revert back to his good side, because that's what a Skywalker does. But at the same time, I get what you're saying, Austin, because he did kill a bunch of innocent people. But that's why it was good that he died at the end. If they would have just let him live as Ben, then that would have been stupid.
Yeah.
Like, he gets to go on and live an innocent life after killing all the innocent people.
That would have been weird.
No, so it was I think it was good that he died at the end.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if you're gonna go this route, he probably has to die in the fashion that he did. Like a lot of other, examples of roles and characters in media. It's kind of the same thing. They have to die as their punishment, even if they do something good. I mean, that's what happened with Vader. And my thing is, I agree with Austin. It's a good point that we see a lot more of Kylo's crimes and actions, if you want to call them that, on screen this time around. Whereas with Vader, we see a lot, but a lot of it we actually don't. We kind of have to infer it or see it in other media. I mean, Vader probably,
And a lot of it is him killing his own generals, too. It's not, like, innocent people.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good point. I mean, I guess we don't see Vader, like... I guess it depends on what you define as innocent. But, like...
Whereas, like, the opening scene of The Force Awakens is Kylo ordering the execution of an entire village.
Well, actually, I don't know what I'm talking about, because I guess it's because I'm getting caught up in the Vader look, but we see Anakin Skywalker murder youngling. He murders children. My point is, we don't need to...
That's true.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need to get into the semantics of it. They're both bad people. We agree on that. I guess what I'm saying is, with Vader, the thing that I actually gained more of an appreciation of with Return of the Jedi is, at the end, I don't think the purpose is for us to walk away and go, wow, Darth Vader became Anakin Skywalker. He was redeemed. I do not think that was the intention. Maybe people took it that way, but it's not supposed to be. I think all he did at the end was saw this vestige of hope he once had through his son, who he doesn't know, but is seeing them being tortured the way he has been so many times, and is just like, you know what, fuck this, and saves his son, kills the Emperor. In a weird way, as we might talk about in a bit, he kind of makes the prophecy come true that he was supposed to at a younger age. He brings balance to the Force, you might say. But the point is, he doesn't redeem himself. He just does one final act that is good before dying, and he looks a bit more positive in the eyes of his son. That's it. That's all that happened there. This is different. What happens with Kylo Ren? As we talked about, Han Solo tells him, Kylo Ren is dead. And then he becomes Ben Solo again, and is trying to do all this good to revert some of the acts he did. And again, they could have made it work, I think, but the last thing I'll say is the biggest problem, like I mentioned, is you made him the main villain at the end of Last Jedi. That's what you were doing. That's what you were setting up. And some people say, yeah, but wasn't Vader the main villain? The whole thing with Kylo, 7, he's conflicted. 8, he's conflicted. At the end, there's a switch, becomes the main villain, becomes the supreme leader. You gotta continue that. You gotta commit to that. You can't do that half of the last movie and then just go, oh, it's done. His mom said hi to him through the Force, and now he's a good guy again. And then we're supposed to remember him positively? I mean, this guy's a maniac. It's like, this was more, to me, what I'm saying is, this was a more like a blatant attempt to redeem somebody, whereas Vader, it was just, wasn't redemption, he just did one good thing before he died, after a lifetime of evil. He did one good thing. That's kind of how it feels to me. That's why it doesn't work, the Kylo Ren redemption in my eyes.
I also think Kylo Ren is just such a way more interesting character than Ben Solo. Like, I just think he's so much better. Like, he's so good as a villain.
Yeah, we don't know Ben Solo, so just give us fucking Kylo Ren. Unless, who knows, maybe in 20 years they'll give us another prequel trilogy that focuses on Ben Solo being born and going up to when he leaves Luke Skywalker
they want to.
for dead.
You know, George fucking kicked down the door of Disney's offices and was like, you know what you need now? You need another prequel trilogy!
Another prequel! I have the trademark for midi-chlorians. They're back. Ben Solo has so many. Cool thing, though. Like I said, I got to point out all the cool things. I did like Ben Solo doing the patented, the Han Solo shoulder shrug when he gets the lightsaber.
Oh, and that fight scene's great,
Yeah,
too.
it was a fun fight scene. I like that a lot.
All right, so let's get into how this film wraps up. We have a pretty cool, in my opinion, final space battle scene, and then we also have some closing shots on Tatooine.
Let's talk about the horses, because I thought the horses were pretty dumb. It just did not fit in this at all. This like weird space battle, bullets flying everywhere, and all of a sudden, like, I felt like I was in like 300 or something like that, and these horses were coming out with these random people that he just picked up like 30 seconds ago.
I actually thought it was cool because like they're fighting on a Star Destroyer, which I thought was a cool setting for the fight. And I think they do a pretty good job of justifying why they're using the horses, because I think they say they're trying to like jam their ships, but it's not working because they're on horses.
Right.
Exactly.
There was a reasoning. I can't remember what it was. Yeah, I didn't love the sequence, but I loved the idea of it. I liked how they're going after this fleet. I like how they have to take out this one ship that has basically the navigation beacon, I suppose, that will get them all off Exegol to wreak havoc on the galaxy. So I liked how Finn was kind of leading the charge almost to get rid of that. That led to some cool moments. We see Rose take 3 steps and then have to be pulled away. It was like, what? How sad. And then we see Poe do some cool flying and shooting, and then that weird guy from Force Awakens that makes lots of sarcastic comics comments, dies, and then literally 2 seconds later, the rest of the fleet shows up. So I kind of felt bad for him. Yeah. So yeah, there was some cool stuff here. There was some fun stuff going on. And then, like we already mentioned, we see Kylo's trying to get to Rey in the meantime, and then they fight Palpatine, and he sucks their life out of them, and that makes him look younger, and also somehow makes his clothes red by pulling out their life force. It changes the color of his clothes for some reason. And then we get the weird. I know Keith probably wants to talk about this. We get the scene where Rey's about to die, and the Force ghosts call out to her, baby. They're saying hi. We get Ewan McGregor saying, "These are your final steps, Rey." And we have Hayden Christensen back saying, "Bring balance to the Force, Rey, like I did." And we have Sam Jackson in there. We have Ahsoka in there. We have Keith, you gotta talk about, did you hear Liam Neeson in there?
Yeah, Qui-Gon was in there.
Qui-Gon had some good lines in there. And then, but the weird part about this scene to me at the end is that the way Rey wins is, the whole thing is she can't kill Palpatine because that's his plan. If she strikes Palpatine down, he'll somehow infect her with himself, and the Sith will live inside Rey. It's like, oh no! But the way she combats that is odd. So she has her lightsaber, she's blocking the Force lightning, and then how does she kill him? Pew! Just pulls out another lightsaber and pushes the lightning towards him. And that's all she had to do. And it kind of begs the question, could Palpatine not just stop shooting the lightning for a second? I guess not. And he dies, and it seems like he's finally gone. And that's the final battle. Keith, let's talk about Wedge coming back.
Wedge! He's back. Wedge Antilles comes back. The actor refused to come back in Force Awakens when they wanted him to come back. Yeah. And then somehow, I guess, he's like...
They had a meeting in the Disney offices, and they were like, guys, I really don't know what we're going to do about Carrie Fisher's death. What can we do? What can we bring in for the fans? And then some random guy was like, what about that one guy, Wedge? And they were like, perfect, let's call him up. They called him up, and they're like, Wedge, we need you. We need you to bring balance to our movies.
He's like, my name's not Wedge. Yeah. Also, we got to talk about this real quick, because I don't think we've talked about it, but I want to say this. Another highlight for me in a movie I hate. Guys, it even shocked me, but I don't know how he does it. Billy D. Williams, this guy is getting up there in age. He is awesome. There's nobody gives a better line delivery than this guy. He's just cool. He's just cool.
There is one line delivery he does not do well.
What?
And that's when they're on that sand planet, and he just looks out and sounds like he's half asleep and goes, I got a bad feeling about it.
I loved that. I thought that sounded pretty good.
Oh, I hated it. Oh, it's so bad.
It wasn't the best.
Feeling about this.
But I thought it was pretty good. And I gotta say, again, also, we get some cool Chewbacca moments. I think JJ heard the outrage of whenever Leia, for some reason, doesn't console Chewie after Han's death. I love seeing Chewie get all excited to see Lando and give him a big hug. I thought it was actually pretty emotional when he finds out Leia dies and he pushes away Poe, who's trying to comfort him. And then he finally gets his medal. So there was some good stuff. I like seeing Lando in the captain's chair, the Falcon, leading the charge with Chewie as the co-pilot, and then Wedge as the gunner. Some fun stuff at the ending. Yeah, I think it worked for the most part. It was fun.
The visual of Palpatine shooting that lightning into the sky, though, I think looks so cool, and the way they pair it with the music too. That
felt so like cool. A cool little pseudo sequel moment to the Holdo thing, because like the music kind of cuts out, and then they use similar colors, but they're doing the lightning, and that was pretty cool. I like that as well. And we already talked about it, but again, just to throw it out there, the Ben Solo death is weird. It's just weirdly shot, I feel like, because we understand the healing aspect, and they have a connection where they can sort of kind of utilize each other's power in a weird sense. So he kind of heals her when she dies, and then they kiss, and it's really weird. But then he just falls over dead. It's just weirdly shot. He smiles after they kiss, and then he just falls over, and then he disappears, and it's like, okay, odd.
I got 2 more things we need to talk about real quick. So do you guys think they should have had a bigger Millennium Falcon fight scene at the end there with Lando and Chewbacca co-piloting together?
I think we have like a full newbie's worth of Falcon flying in this franchise, so I'm good. I don't need any more.
Yeah, we didn't get a lot in the last one, so this one definitely has a lot. I did actually kind of dig the hyperspeed, the light speed skipping. That was kind of a fun scene with the Falcon at the beginning.
But that was cool. That was so weird too, because do they not have to calculate that now anymore?
Apparently not.
That's always a big point of this movie.
Also, the enemy ships are somehow doesn't even matter that they're doing that because they apparently are doing it right behind them as well. But yeah, I think actually I agree with Keith. I think it would have been cool to see, knowing Lando is piloting, it might have been cool to see them like do like just take out one ship, just like do some cool flying just to take out one of them. Could have been cool.
The second thing is, what did you guys think about the hint that Finn has Force abilities? I don't know. It's just a feeling. And then he says it again later on. What was that? A feeling.
Well, yeah, he definitely has the Force. I mean, yes, you're right. They never explicitly say it, but it's without a doubt. There's a moment where when Rey dies, he's on the Falcon, and he just stops and goes, "No, Rey." I'm like, so he clearly knows. Like, he has the Force. Weird inclusion for me. I don't think they needed it. I mean, Finn was already pretty cool to me, so it just felt like this weird kind of shoved in third movie of a trilogy thing. I didn't love it. I don't think they did anything especially cool with it. He never tells Rey, so nothing really comes of it. So all we really get is that weird scene where he's going to tell Rey in the sand pit when they're sinking. It's like, is he going to say he loves her? But then it's like, well, no, I guess he was going to tell her that he has Force powers. Why would he say that when they're about to die?
Yeah, I don't know why they even had him say that without, like, if you're not going to address it later, what's the point of having him say, I got to tell you something?
No, and why was that a big deal? That he has, I mean, if he knows Rey has been dealing with this, what's the worst that can happen? Rey, I have the Force. And she'll, like...
All right.
Stupid.
We got to wrap this up.
No!
In order to do so, we got to talk about some colors. We've got red. We've got blue. We've got green. And now, apparently, we have a yellow lightsaber.
Yes. The final shot. Or I guess the final shots. Rey goes back to the Uncle O and Aunt Beru house on Tatooine.
Yeah, the Lars family homestead, or whatever.
And I like seeing it. I mean, it's cool looking.
Yeah, it was cool.
I like the aged look of it. I know that's actually there. I don't know if they built it again, but I know, there's cool shots of the original Star Wars sets in Tunisia that are just, obviously, they can't, like, get rid of them, so they're just kind of left there to aged time, so that's kind of neat. Yeah, I thought it was fine. I guess my only issue with the ending, I don't really have much of an issue. It feels weird in a long movie like this where I guess I kind of wish I had an idea of what was going to happen next. I'm not saying I want episode 10, I don't. What I'm saying is, it's weird by the end of this movie, I don't know what Rey is doing. Is she going to continue the Jedi? I wouldn't blame her if she didn't, but she made a new lightsaber. What's she going to do with it? Is she looking for a recruit? I don't know. I thought it was weird that we don't get like a pretty clear inclination of what the hell she's going to be doing in the future. So I guess that's what they did with Return of the Jedi, though. I mean, it's not like we knew what Luke was going to do right after, but still, I guess for the final one, I wish we would have gotten something.
Is there a significance to lightsaber colors? Like, I don't understand the point of having her show a yellow lightsaber and then the credits roll.
They used to say there was, but then I read somewhere else that they don't matter. Like, George Lucas confirmed that no, the colors don't matter. It's just random. Except for red. Red means like Sith. You're a Sith. But if you're a Jedi,
Sam Jackson requested his purple lightsaber because he wanted to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the significance of it is that if we assume that Rey went about it how Jedis did in the past, is she constructed her own, and she chose the Kyber crystal. She chose that color. She kind of made the hilt to look like her bow staff that she would carry around. So there was certainly significance to it, like it was hers. This was not Luke's lightsaber. This was not Leia's lightsaber. In fact, she buries them on Tatooine. This was hers. So that's cool. But again, yeah, I just wish I would have known more about, like, for the final movie in this saga. I was like, is Rey going to continue the Jedi? That was kind of like a point of contention on Octo whenever she tries to goofily exile herself, and Luke comes out with a really bad wig and is like, you gotta respect your equipment. It's like, okay, Mark Hamill. Yeah, so it's just a bit odd. And then the only other thing I don't like about it, I like how it looks, but whenever the old woman shows up and he's like, who are you? She's like, I'm Rey.
There's been nobody for so long.
She's like, I'm Rey. And then the old woman does something you would never do to a stranger, which is, Rey who? It's like, fuck off. I'm not telling you my last name. And then she picks Skywalker, which is completely unearned. I mean, it's weird. So that's how the movie ends, though, with the twin sons. But it wasn't the worst thing in this movie, so I didn't hate it. But
what if she had said Rey Solo, and then it panned to her left hand and she was wearing a wedding ring?
Ugh. I would have walked out of the movie. I would have thrown my popcorn across the room.
I'm Rhaegon Jinn. There we go, boys. We made it through.
All right. So before we close out here, anything else? Anything else you want to talk about before we never talk about Star Wars again?
Until The Mandalorian, Episode 3. Catch it this Sunday on podcast feeds.
We can't escape it. It's a cash cow Disney is going to milk forever.
We'll make a new trilogy at some point about Chewbacca's
I think
niece or something.
I think it's in the works already.
Chewbacca niece, a Star Wars story. Can't wait. Anyway, Keith, any other thoughts?
Yeah, 3 quick hits that I just thought were cool and iconic from the Star Wars overall series. Number 1 would be Chewie hugging Lando and Lando doing his classic "Hey, old buddy" line. I thought that was kind of cool and funny.
I like that too.
Number 2, Luke and Leia's training flashback scene. I thought that was pretty cool, even though Leia's face was kind of CGI'd a little bit.
Yeah,
not as good as Luke's.
This.
Luke's looked a lot better than hers for some reason. I'm like, why did they mess up on hers? But his looked pretty good.
I hated this because it felt so forced. I feel like they only put this in there because there were so many questions about her Force abilities from The Last Jedi.
Yeah, I think that's your answer.
It would have been nice to like actually have seen Leia as a Jedi at some other point in the movies, I guess.
Yeah.
But having this shoehorned in there just felt kind of pointless.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that's fair.
And lastly, this one was awesome to me. Luke raising the X-wing out of the water was iconic. I mean, because you get that with Yoda raising his X-wing out of the water on Dagobah, and now it shows that Luke really is the master now, and he's able to do it now.
I thought that
because he
was
wasn't able to do it before.
Yeah, I agree.
I love that scene too. I just think it's so funny when they pan the Force Luke when they pan the Force Ghost Luke, and it looks like he's constipated trying to raise this thing.
Yeah. Mark Hamill had some weird moments as a Force Ghost, but yeah. I like the scene too. It felt like a cool little, I guess, inversion of Empire stuff, so it was neat.
I'm glad our last point for Star Wars is a constipation point. Yeah, it's a great place.
I wouldn't have
to end
it any other way. What about Babu Freak? He was a hit. I like Babu Freak.
Who's that? Alrighty, guys. Here it is. It's the big moment, the culmination. It's time for the definitive, final Star Wars rankings. This is it. We're never going to get a chance to change them again.
No.
This is our final rankings.
You can never change your opinion. So because you said that, I guess before we get into it, I took a hard look at my list, I'll be honest, and I thought about making some changes, but I didn't ultimately. I just added in the stuff I needed to. So, did you guys make any?
I made a change or two.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You did? Interesting.
I sat down and took a hard look before we recorded, and I did make some changes. Keith, I think I would just be simply honored as our super fan if you started us off tonight.
And let's go bottom to top.
All right. The bottom was a tough one to choose. It was tied between 2 of them, but for certain aspects of one of them, even though there were some scenes in this one that I liked, but for certain aspects of it, you just got to put it at the bottom, and that is Attack of the Clones.
Yes. I can't disagree.
After Attack of the Clones, this one right here, Rise of Skywalker. Then, Force Awakens, Return of the Jedi, The Last Jedi, Solo, The Phantom Menace, New Hope, then Rogue One, then Revenge of the Sith, and number 1, and will always be number 1, Empire Strikes Back.
So you really think after seeing all these movies that The Last Jedi is that bad? That's the only issue I have.
Keith was definitely, Keith was always
I put it above Return, Force Awakens, Attack.
For Keith, I will say for Keith that's pretty good, because Keith isn't The Last Jedi fan.
It's in the middle. I mean, it's up towards the middle.
Austin, let's leave the questions for later, because just knock it out of the park. Give us your list, Austin.
All right, I'm going to start at the top. Number 1, Rogue One. Number 2, The Last Jedi. Number 3, Empire. Number 4, Revenge of the Sith. Number 5, The Force Awakens. Number 6, Solo. Number 7, The Phantom Menace. Number 8, Attack of the Clones. Number 9, Rise of Skywalker. Number 10, A New Hope. And number 11, Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Man, you really hate Return of the Jedi.
I'm not a fan of it either.
So boring.
Of which we got a shot of the Ewoks in this one.
We did, and Cloud City. I got Cloud City. Oh man,
All right.
I'm nervous.
Well, respectable list, Austin.
Yeah,
You know,
good list. I'm nervous because I know we're probably not going to be able to talk about this list anymore. So this is like, I have to make sure it's perfect. I'm going over it now. I don't think there's anything I want to change. There's one thing I will say, my 9th and 10th place. I am a bit iffy. I feel like those could kind of go either way for me, but everything else feels pretty locked in. So here we go. Let's start with what I know. Might surprise you guys, because I'm ranking 12 things. I added 2 things to this list, so we'll see how you feel about it and the placement. Matt's final list, number 12, Attack of the Clones. And I'm in lockstep with Keith, number 11. I think it's a slightly better movie. Honestly, I could put it last sometimes, but because it's just so offensive to me. But I think it's better made. Number 11's The Rise of Skywalker. Number 10, this is my most controversial one, Return of the Jedi. I just don't like it. It's boring to me. I don't like it. I don't like the ending of that original trilogy. Number 9 is The Phantom Menace. Not as bad on this rewatch. I was kind of impressed. I didn't love it, obviously, but there were things to like about it. Number 8, The Mandalorian Season 1. I put on there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not a big fan of it. I like the first episode and the last episode, not much else. Number 7, A New Hope. Number 6, The Force Awakens. Number 5, Revenge of the Sith. Number 4, Rogue One. Number 3, Solo. Number 2, Empire Strikes Back. And number 1, The Last Jedi.
I think the only thing I disagree with you on is The Last Jedi being number 1.
I can't
Well, I have The Last Jedi number 2.
I don't know why. I mean, I like The Last Jedi better. It's the best one out of this trilogy, but
Yeah.
it's definitely not up there for me.
I get that.
You just like the classics too much.
I do.
You like them too much. I loved Empire, and I loved it watching it again. I don't know, man. Last Jedi just works for me. I wouldn't be surprised, though, because I've seen Empire so many times. Maybe 10 years from now, after seeing Last Jedi a few more times, maybe I'll be like, you know what, Empire is better. So we'll see how it holds up over time. That's just where I'm at right now.
All right. Well, now it's time for the Arnies Podcast Awards. If you caught us for the first time, this is a segment where we give an award to anything in this episode. Keith has known the rules for, I think, 1 episode so far. So, Keith, start us off today. What's your award?
My award is the most badass character of this trilogy award. It goes to my main man, Chewbacca. I love Chewbacca in this trilogy. He's badass.
Yeah.
Did you love it when Finn stepped outside and instead of yelling Rey, yelled, Chewie!
That
Yeah.
was pretty cool. Can we talk about that weird scene just real quick? Isn't it weird that, like, we see Chewie loaded onto the transport, and then, like, apparently there was another transport also there that gets blown up?
Yeah, he should be dead.
Later they just go, oh, he was on the other transport. It's like, what other transport? Like, Finn watched him get on that ship. So, funny to me. Funny.
I think it would have been way more impactful, too, if Rey, not fully knowing how to control her powers, had accidentally killed Chewie, too.
Yeah, could have been cool.
Yeah.
Would have been sad, but could have been cool. Austin, who's your award? Or what's your award? Or, honestly, it could be anything. But what are you giving your award to?
I was stuck between 3 tonight. I had a hard time choosing.
Do you want to run through all of them? Just like let us know what you were thinking.
Yeah. Okay. So I had 2 for Palpatine.
Oh,
One of them was the Stumpiest Fingers Award.
That's fair.
To Palpatine's fingers. I don't know why they need to pan on those so many times in this movie.
I didn't like that.
The second one was the Best Car Seat Award, and that's to the little harness that's holding Palpatine up, keeping him safe, nice and protected.
He was safe.
It's a very effective car seat.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final one was actually to Kylo, and it was, I guess, the Best Coloring Book Award, and it's the new helmet that he gets with all those red lines, and he's got to shade in the little black things.
Nice.
But ultimately, I don't know what the official award should be.
I think Stumpiest Fingers for me. I like that a lot because I couldn't.
All right, that was my first one, so we'll go with that.
I can't agree more.
Yeah.
It's been decreed by Matt Johnson. Palpatine gets the Stumpiest Fingers Award.
Good for him. This one was also tough because you want to give an award to the movie, but with it being the end of not only the Skywalker Saga, this is the end of our, Star Wars review series that we've been doing in the middle of this. So I want to give an award to something that not only is present here, but I think is very representative of this series as a whole. So the award I'll be giving today is the motivation we didn't get, but sorely needed. And that's going to go to the youngling from Revenge of the Sith. Why wasn't he in the final scene giving Rey some pep talk? I mean, I would have loved to be like, Rey, these are your final steps. And like, hey, Rey, bring balance to the Force like me. And then we could have got, Rey, what are you going to do? Like, to me, it was just a missed opportunity.
And then after that, Yoda's voice could have come in and said, so why's the mind of a child?
What if they had the kid from Attack of the Clones? Like, Rey's just like laying there days, and then you just hear a kid go, maybe, Master, maybe if you fly out there, Mom, you know, Kamino will be there. And Rey's like, wait, what? Am I getting like my streams confused here?
So why is the mind of a child?
You just have like just random lines from the prequels, like she's so confused, like what? Like, put the ship down.
Or when they're light speed jumping, you just hear Ewan McGregor going, I love flying, but what you're doing is suicide.
Every character starts to hear the voices. You have like a Sebulba in there going, Misa's who's the
Forrest Whitaker. Lies! More lies!
Save the dream!
All right. Well, we got to get out of here today. Everyone, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming content. Also, if you wouldn't mind sharing us with a friend, that really is the best way to help us continue to grow this show. At The Arnies is our social, and thearnies.media is the website. We'll be back next week for a bracket on the best sports movies.
Hell yeah, I'm excited. We love doing the Halloween bracket. We've liking these brackets, so I'm happy that we're going to be doing more. I think we're going to have some good ones for the holiday season for all you out there. And while, yes, maybe we didn't love this movie, it is a sad day that our Star Wars review series is coming to a close. But if you're a Star Wars fan, don't fear too much, because if you haven't checked it out, we are doing each of the episodes of The Mandalorian as they come out, so be sure to head to your podcast feeds, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts, because whenever the episodes come out on Fridays, expect the following Sunday to see the review. Like Keith said, he'll be missing us this week, so episode 3 will be this Sunday, and he'll be back episode 4. Lots of great stuff coming. Can't wait.
Yeah, and check us out on Instagram at The Arnies. Feel free to direct message us your thoughts on this episode, The Mandalorian, your favorite sports movies, and Matthew, don't forget, for The Mandalorian, who are we and what are we doing?
Because, as Keith mentioned, we are not just the Arnies when we review The Mandalorian. No sir, no ma'am, no person. We are the podcast within the podcast. The Mandos Talkin' DeLorean. And no, do I love the title? I don't. Okay? I don't love it. But we have a brand to maintain, and by golly, we're gonna make it happen. And when WandaVision comes out, are we gonna be the Wandas talking the Vision? Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody, we'll see you next week. See you later.
Save the dream!